Alright everyone, it's Thursday and we're nearly at the weekend. It's a pretty big game this weekend, Hibernian versus Celtic. It's always one I look forward to. No Stevie today, he's on holiday everyone. I don't know if you're aware of that, but fear not, to make up for it, we've got this guy on, John McGinley. John, if I had £1 for every time someone commented asking me when you were coming in Celtic AM, I'd probably have like 20 quid or something. How are you?
Well, that's better than nothing, I suppose. I've had a few comments as well. It's nice to be back on a Celtic YouTube channel or podcast, if you will. A lot of people call this a podcast, even though it isn't. And I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be back with you, chatting about Celtic. You know, it's bigger than the Oasis reunion in my books, Hamish. Don't know about you.
I was going to say, is that a blue shirt you've got on though? Because I'm going to pull you up for that.
Shirt. Well, I'll tell you what happened. I have to actually tell you where I've been, because I know there's been a lot of rumours flying around, people, making up stuff in the comments. I have been in Stevie's basement. He locked me up because I was chatting too much, positivity about Celtic over the last 6 months, and he decided I'd had enough of it. I managed to jimmy a lock with his 55 memorabilia coin from his Rangers set, and managed to steal a blue shirt just before I got out of there. Let's just say it's no coincidence that he's out of the country as I've appeared, and I've sold my story for a Channel 5 drama. So there we go.
Fabulous. And he's not even here to defend himself either. We'll maybe get the two of you on it together at some stage. We're chatting here as if we haven't been speaking every day in a group chat over the last year. How are things? How's your Celtic stuff? 67hailhail.com still going strong, I see, as well.
Still going strong on the website, yep, without you.
And stronger,
I'm
some
good.
Would say.
Yeah, I'm good. It's been a weird year for me personally. Had a few issues here and there, but I'm fine. I'm back, and I'm glad to be talking about Celtic again. I've actually really enjoyed Celtic over the last 6 months, so I managed to miss out on all the rancour of around December, January, and come back firing just as Celtic were hitting their stride again.
Yeah, I think we're going to use this video probably to do a bit of a catch-up and just kind of evaluate how we feel about Celtic at the moment, and really just lay our cards on the table, let's just say, because I think there's so much to be excited about right now. I am as excited about a Celtic team as I have been in probably only a couple of years when Ange was kind of getting going, but I'm as excited now, maybe even more than I was at that stage. Like, I think that the way the team's playing at the moment is so exciting, and there's so much potential. But there's this thing in the background and this feeling that the club maybe aren't, prepared to go to the next level or do what is necessary to get to that stage. And it has been a pretty poor transfer window so far, certainly a quiet transfer window. So a nice and easy one to kick off right now. How are you feeling about Celtic right now?
Well, first of all, just to reference your comment there, you're not writing a Brendan Rodgers book, are you? You say you're excited as the Angira. Hopefully not.
Yeah.
But just to, I think you're right, because it's difficult, and it sometimes feels like there's two almost hypocritical strands of supporting Celtic right now, where you're pleased with the progress of the team on the pitch and very wary of, what's going on off the pitch, very wary of kind of the structure behind the scenes at the club, the recruitment process, and obviously 2 or 3 slow transfer windows now that have been kind of confusing and not as productive as we'd want them to be. Just on the first point, on being excited about Celtic, I think the job that Brendan Rodgers has done, especially over the last 8 months or so, or maybe the last 6 months, has been exceptional. I think when he came back, and he's admitted this himself on multiple occasions, when he came back, it was a little bit awkward. It was a little bit weird. The supporters didn't really know what to think of him. He wasn't really sure how to interact with the supporters, and even at times for me, felt like he didn't really know how to be in the media and how to present himself in the media. And then as the season went on, you started to see the old Brendan again, the classic Brendan, the wee quotes, the wee quips, the wee smile, and he started getting a little bit cheekier over the course of the year, and he started getting a bit of that fire back. And I think that coincided with what we saw on the pitch. And it was interesting at the end of the season for him to go back and reference all that media stuff, and then even say, use some of those headlines and some of those reports and some of the columnists, because I think the Sunday columnists in particular, I think Hugh Keevins and Gary Keown were very, very critical of Rodgers, and I think he resented that in some way. He also referenced Chris Sutton a few times, and he used that media stuff with the players to try and fire them up. So I was delighted with the progress that Rodgers is making with the team, and you can see that in the games this summer. I mean, the game at the weekend was phenomenal and was just a continuation of what we've seen in pre-season. Again, we're going to get into it, but the transfer window stuff is frustrating, and I can understand where Celtic fans are coming from, the ones who are worried, because you can't just dismiss it as moaning and entitlement, because it's not that. I know what Celtic fans, at its core, Hamish, and I know what you're worried about. I know what every Celtic fan is worried about. They're worried we're going to sell Matt O'Reilly, we're going to get 2 or 3 loan signings in, and we might make some sort of mid-range signing and maybe bring in Adam Ida. And that's what everyone's worried about. And I don't think that's going to cut it over the next few weeks. And I think Celtic need to be very proactive in these last few weeks to get us the players that we want and that Brendan Rodgers has made clear that he wants to.
Because it's all about, for me, and I've said this a number of times, for me it's about putting yourself at Champions League level and finally trying to get results at that level. And I happen to feel, and I know you feel the same way, that we weren't a million miles away last year. Certainly in 5 of the 6 games, certainly the 3 home matches, we more than competed, and it's maybe just that extra bit of quality. And my feeling is that if you pitch yourself at that level and strengthen, the domestic stuff, should kind of take care of itself. But I guess it's been pretty slow, and I'm always wary of. It's so difficult because windows should really be judged at the end, because that's when the window's over, and obviously this could still turn out to be a great window, and I actually still have hope that it might turn out to be a great window and we might get the quality left back and centre back and all of that stuff in, but you can only really call it as we go at the moment, and it's just been so slow. What's your take on why we're at the 8th of August and have only signed one outfielder, and it's a player who was here last season?
There's a lot of theories. And, you spin them round in your head, and I do all the time. You spin round, is it the biscuit tin mentality? Is it, the disciples of Peter Lawwell, now in charge of the club, doing things the way that they've always been done in terms of a risk-averse strategy? I think slowly but surely I'm coming round to the conclusion that I don't know if Celtic are well enough equipped or know how to bridge this gap between the 3, 4 and 5 million pound signings and the 10, 11 million pound signings. I think once you start shopping in a little bit more expensive market, those players have more options available to them. It's difficult to get them on contracts that fit within the wage structure of the club. And none of this absolves Celtic, because I think Celtic are a big club with a lot of resources, and they should have people in place in positions of power who know how to bridge this gap and know how to ramp up this recruitment. I actually don't think that all this cash in the bank, all this stuff, I don't think they're sitting on it for the sake of it, because it doesn't actually make business sense to hoard cash. It's inefficient. It's not efficient. So even if they're thinking from a purely business perspective, I don't think they want all that cash sitting in the bank, because it's not doing anyone any good. I mean, you saw them finally invest in Barrowfield, for example, which has cost a good few £1 million. And I just think they don't know how to do it. I think they're struggling with recruitment. I think they're struggling shopping in the markets they want to shop in. And again, I'm not absolving the board by saying, it's a difficult market and all that. Celtic should have the people in place to be able to do this, and they don't, I think, at the moment, unfortunately. And I think that's principally the reason. I think the money is there to be spent. I'm just not sure they know how to spend it, which is a bit depressing.
Yeah, yeah. I think most of us feel that it is that higher level of player that we need right now. You look at previous windows, and it's kind of been numbers generally. And I was even looking at the number of the amount of money we've spent over the past 3 seasons. So last season we spent around about £21 million. That's according to figures we have for the players signed. The year before it was £25 million. That was when we brought in Jota and Carter Vickers. They were a big chunk of that. And the year before that, the big rebuild when Ange first came in was £24 million. So we've tended to spend that kind of £20 to £25 million per season, that is. So there's no real indication suggesting that wouldn't be the case this year. But I think, it's that quality player that not even 10, 11 million for me, it's that kind of 6, 7, 8 million pound player that I think could really make a difference for us. Your Jotas, Carter Vickers, Odsonne Edouard was a bit more. These guys, you kind of knew when they signed that they would be big players for us. I guess that because it had loan spells as well. But it's the club spending that kind of money I want to see, but it's been so slow. Did you want to go through the financial figures just quickly, and then
I just wanted to bring up, because this is what we're dealing with, and usually there's a lot of chat about finances this week because Celtic released that update to the stock exchange, which is a legal requirement on their part for them to communicate a material change in what they think will be strong financial results. I think the headline numbers there are the revenue and the cash on bank. Okay, so I mean, I think there's a possibility that Celtic have more cash on bank this and in the upcoming financial results than they did last year, based on interim results and based on what they posted to the stock exchange. Again, it's not efficient. And the thing about the revenue is that I really want to highlight is that the vast majority of it is produced by the fans. Now, Champions League money is a big thing, and that is a large chunk of it. But when you dig into the annual reports of Celtic, especially in the last 2 or 3 years, the merchandise sales are through the roof. Fans are buying gear more than they have ever before. The season ticket sales are so strong. The ticket sales for the Champions League are so strong. And it's the fans who power most of the revenue coming into the club. And I think Celtic fans are well within their rights to want to see a team on the pitch that is the very best it can be. And I just don't think Celtic are quite hitting that mark at the moment. And again, they need to have the people in place to be able to enact a strategy, and I don't think they do at the moment. And I think that's what's the most frustrating thing. I don't think it's some sort of, you see all these things online sometimes. It's a big conspiracy theory. Peter Lawwell's ruining the club. Peter Lawwell doesn't even actually have much to do with it anymore. I think if you're directing criticism, and criticism will be earned if this transfer window doesn't turn out the way we want it to, but I think if you're aiming criticism, you need to aim it at the people who are actually making decisions at the moment. And it's Michael Nicholson and Chris Mackay who, I believe, lead the negotiations on Celtic transfers. So if the criticism goes anywhere, it should be going to them. The real issues are that Celtic don't have the staff in the club, I feel like, to deliver transfers in the way that Brendan Rodgers wants or the majority of fans wants. And I think that needs to change. And hopefully we start to see some fruition of any, Rodgers insists there's hard work going on behind the scenes, but Celtic fans are sick of the talking. They're sick of us talking about it, Hamish.
I'm sick of talking about it.
Yeah, you must be sick of talking about it. And we just need to see it start to come to fruition. And then Celtic need to do a lot of soul searching and show a bit of humility and admit that they're struggling to do this, because I think it's clear over the last 2 or 3 transfer windows that they are.
Just returning to the Michael Nicholson, Chris Mackay point, that's something I heard a number of years ago. I think it's kind of widely known that those are the guys that are running the club. But you get why people feel like that about Peter Lawwell, because our transfer stuff was running very smoothly until he came back to the club. And it's I know, I guess a part of that was probably Ange, and him leaving's probably the big reason, but our transfer business is nowhere near as efficient as it was 18 months ago.
I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say that I agreed with Peter Lawwell coming back as chairman, for better or worse. And this isn't a slagging Peter Lawwell thing. I just think it's strange to bring a CEO back as chairman. It's a little bit odd, and then it's odd for his son to come in as head of recruitment. It looks terrible. Like, it looks terrible. Even if it's not actually that terrible, it looks terrible to a lot of people. And I think, given all the baggage, people think that Celtic have been stifled really by the Peter Lawwell. And to his credit, I do think in general the club has been run pretty well over the last 20 years in terms of we've stayed within our means. We've had a lot of domestic success. I think the European stuff speaks for itself. I think a lot of people have feelings like that. But when Peter Lawwell left, everyone felt like it should have been a new era at Celtic. And so I'm coming back, everyone feels like we're just taking a step back again, even if we're not actually doing that. So I think the optics of it are actually terrible. But I do think that people need to direct their criticism and their problems at the right people and not, be too stuck in the past and blame people who actually have nothing to do with it anymore, because that's not going to get anyone anywhere.
Yeah. What have you made of the way Brendan Rodgers is handling all this transfer stuff?
Quite well, to be honest with you. I know, well, I don't know about you, Hamish, but I know a lot of people have kind of felt just frustrated he's not been more forceful with his messaging. I don't know if you've picked up on that.
It's not his way, is it? It's not his style.
It's not his way.
He tends to do it further down the line, doesn't he, after a bruising 4-0 Champions League loss.
And he said he's not sending coded messages and all that, and I actually believe it, because he's actually been very upfront and open and honest about how he feels about it, and he's been that way all summer. I don't think he's saying anything in the press that he's not already said to Michael Nicholson or Chris Mackay. So I think that's fair enough, and if he's communicating to the support what he's communicating to them, then I think that's fair enough, and I think that's the correct way to handle it. A little bit transparency, not obviously full open books on how the Celtic transfer process works, but I think he's been about as open as he can be on the situation. He's been very clear, Hamish, that he wants players in. He wants players of a certain standard in, and he thinks if he gets that, then they can do something in Europe in terms of picking up a few more results that we haven't been in recent years.
Because I think that's for me, that's a frustration, because it all seems very obvious. I think if you were to canvass all the Celtic support and ask what does this team need, we'd probably all agree on 3 positions. We need a left back, we need a centre back, and we need a striker. Adam Ida, hopefully, and Brendan Rodgers has been very clear that it's Adam Ida who he wants. So this has to be done, basically. And I think I just feel he's been dialing things up a little bit over the past week and kind of making it clear to people that the board know how he feels. And the pressure's really on the board to deliver these players, because maybe a year ago they could get away with it because there wasn't generally a very positive feeling towards Brendan Rodgers. I think now there's a positive feeling towards the job he's done, the players that we have, the way the team are playing. And if they don't deliver the players to enhance that and really hopefully make the difference at Champions League level, there's going to be a hell of a lot of frustration shown towards the board.
I think so. And it will be earned. It's not... I don't think this has been blown out proportion by fans. I think fans are realistic about the kind of business Celtic can do. I get that sometimes when you look at comment sections or you look online or you speak to your pals or whatever, there's sometimes a lot of negativity, but it's people venting about what they want from Celtic. It's because they care about the club so much. They want what's best for Celtic. They want to see the best version of Celtic on the pitch. And I think it's kind of undeniable that we're not quite using the resources that we have in the most efficient way for that purpose. And I think that's the problem that the board have in terms of optics, as I said, but just in terms on a practical basis, they're really struggling at the moment to deliver what we need. But who knows? You're right. I've always been one to say, you wait until the end of a transfer window to truly judge it. So we will see what happens in this last 3 weeks, but we're getting on a bit now. And like you say, we need at least 3 positions. It's 4 or 5 for me, if I'm being perfectly honest with you.
Okay, run us through them then.
Yeah, so I think we need another centre-back. Now, I'm probably a bigger Liam Scales fan than most. People probably haven't heard me talk about him because I've not been on these kind of shows for a while, but I think he's a very solid player at Premiership level, and I like him. I think he should be part of the squad. I think we can do better in terms of a starter alongside Carter Vickers. I think we can build a real elite partnership with Carter Vickers in there and bringing up another real quality player. So I think we need a centre-back, a starting centre-back. I think we obviously need a left-back. You look at it, it's undeniable. I think we obviously need a forward. Again, it's undeniable. I actually think we need another winger. Now, I say that, I know that we've got 6 on this screen here, but if you're realistically looking at it, you could probably trust Daiza Maeda. Kuhn looks good in the early stages of the season. You could trust James Forrest in a pinch, off the bench, etc. I like Luis Palma more than most people. I thought he had a good first half of the season last year, and I want to see him kick on. But again, I just think we're needing an extra edge in there to really liven that, one of those positions up and really liven that attack up.
A Jota or someone like that. I don't mean Jota, but someone like that with that kind of stardust.
Yes, stardust is a great way to put it. I'm looking for that little extra edge just to really liven things up. And then you're looking at the midfield again. and there's a lot of midfielders again on the screen, but half of them aren't cutting it. And one of them, the best one, could be away. So, I mean, that's what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 positions I've just mentioned that I would consider a fair priority in the last few weeks of the window. But again, the goalkeepers came in quite quickly, came in a little flourish, so it is possible for Celtic to get the ball moving on the stuff. I like Paulo Bernardo coming back, and we'll just need to wait and see. I mean, what are your thoughts on it? Are you feeling like it's 2 or 3, or are you thinking it's 4 or 5, 6?
Yeah, I think it's funny because I think I actually totally agree with every position you say, and I think the majority of people watching this will feel the same way. That's what I mean. Brendan Rodgers must have the same positions in mind as well. The midfield one, I'm happy with the midfield at the moment as it is. You know, I think McGregor, O'Reilly, Hatate is about as good a Celtic midfield as we've had in a couple of decades. Those 3 players are unbelievable. Paulo Bernardo, I think, could grow into being a really good player for us. Iwata's a reliable squad player.
Yeah, it's a good squad player.
Odin Thiago Holmes, someone I'm not totally convinced by, but I want to see maybe a bit more of him this season. I think if we keep O'Reilly, I'm happy with that midfield. If O'Reilly moves on, I think we need to strengthen that. I agree about the wingers. The point I would make, totally the same as yours, is about trust. Who do you actually trust there? I'm really excited by Nicholas Kuhn. I think James Forrest will have a bigger say this season than people realise. I think he's looked electric so far. Less sure on Lewis Palma. Dyson Maeda, we all know what Dyson Maeda is. We love him.
I mean, we did talk privately about Palma over the summer, I think, in the group chat one of those times, and you weren't as sure of him. I was kind of defending him a little bit because I do think he was actually pretty good in those first few months, and even pretty good in the Champions League, looking good. Yeah. He did fall away, but you just never know a player like that, whether they're going to come back on us or not. I would like to see that. The one I'm really not sure about is Yang. I just don't think he has it.
Yeah. He's a loan away or something like that.
Yeah, something like that.
How confident are you that we're going to get all those 4 or 5 positions that you require?
God, that's a good question. I don't think I've even thought about that in my own head, but to be honest, frankly, and I don't like to say this, but not very confident. I think we'll get 2 or 3, and then it depends what they can. There might be a few last minute type ones but again, the last minute type ones can work out, Hamish. I mean, you think about who was last minute a couple of years ago. It was Jota,
CCV.
Carter Vickers. I mean, those are some of the best signings we've made. Those are some of the best signings we've made in the last decade. So things can change quickly. I think that is important to say. So I think even if you're frustrated and you're upset just now, I do think you have to take that into account. I'm not saying trust the board to deliver, but I am saying it's fair enough to have a wee bit of hope and to feel good as well. Because like we say, I mean, I've probably spent the last 20 minutes moaning here, but I'm actually genuinely excited about the job Brendan Rodgers is doing. I think he's building a great team. I think it's getting back to the way Rodgers was, the Rodgers we remember, the good times, and it's getting away from that kind of awkward, sticky phase where nobody really knew what was happening with Rodgers and Celtic.
Just in the left-back stuff, that's strange that we've gone the last 2 windows, some would argue longer, needing a left-back. Basically, ever since we realised Alexandro Bernabei wasn't up to much. So certainly at least 2 windows, 3 including this one, and we've not signed a left-back yet. I just find that baffling. What's going on there?
It's almost like Kieran Tierney's leaving Arsenal next summer, and we might be building towards that. And that's a wee joke, just before anyone murders me in the comments section. But, I don't know. They're the old joke. I think before you appeared on my scene anyway, in terms of Celtic supporter, the old joke on the Celtic forums was, is he a left back, with any name that came up? Because during the 2000s, we went through a period of having no left back and everyone wanting to sign a left back for about a decade. So it's nothing new for a lot of Celtic fans. Greg Taylor is Greg Taylor. I do think we need someone to push him, and obviously we need just an alternative option, because Greg Taylor can't play the next 60 matches, to be frank about that.
Yeah. Changing things up, potential third kit. Fan of that? What do you think?
It's a bit SAS who dares wins, but it's decent. I mean, I've gone past the era of me caring about football strips. I used to like them a lot and care about them a lot, and now I'm that old annoying guy who goes, "Oh, it's just a football strip. Who cares?" But
I remember you being pretty irate about last season's home kit, I must say.
Well, last season's home kit was a nightmare, to be honest. Let's be clear about that.
You didn't have to promote it online for bloody JD Sports and Adidas.
Oh, that was a nice one.
It was
that was a nice sponsorship opportunity. Have you got any more of those lined up for us, Hamish?
Sadly, this season they've not been in touch. The minute the kits get good, they don't need a guy like me to sell them to people.
They'll be waiting for your Brendan Rodgers book to come out, I think.
I like the kits this year. Actually, I'm not maybe mad on that one, but it's interesting. But I like the yellow. I love a yellow Celtic away kit. I really like that, and I think the home kit this year's a cracker as well. So yeah, that's all going on. Hibs this weekend, John. I think you're going to join me after the game for a chat about it as well. But it's always a fixture that I look forward to. I'm a little bit. I'm kind of struggling to work out how I feel about this because I should be confident because it's Celtic, we're playing so well, Hibs are struggling, but Easter Road's one of those grounds where things happen. It's a bit like Tynecastle. Things can happen if you're not totally at it. You can find yourself chucking away some points.
I agree with that. Easter Road has at times been a bit of a difficult venue for us. I do think we'll do the job at the weekend though. Hibs are looking pretty muck, and I just think Celtic are at it just now. I think they're really feel like they're proving something, or at least wanting to carry on a good feeling. I think there's a lot of good energy between the players, just in terms of being teammates and like team spirit. I think there's a really good sense of that even on the pitch. But I know the players always say stuff after the game, and it's all some of it's routine. But sometimes you just get a little glint that things are going extra well, and I just have that feeling from the players right now. They all are really enjoying working with each other. I think they're all really enjoying working with Brendan Rodgers, and I think we'll see that again on the pitch. I think it'll look like the Celtic players are enjoying themselves again, and that usually produces a good enough performance to get all 3 points. So I'm looking forward to it. Yep.
Yeah. What is the reason, do you think, for them all feeling so good? Brendan Rodgers has clearly done a hell of a job. I guess the end of last season would have been a big part in that, coming through the adversity to finish the season so strong. And I guess having the Champions League on the horizon might focus minds a little bit as well.
I do think it was the galvanisation of I think they lost one match in the last 25 in the second half of last season or something like that. Right. And I just think going on that run, coming through a bit of criticism, a bit of stick, some of the players were getting stick, there was a lot of injuries, people were coming back, it just all started to click. And I mean, the last few weeks of the season, the Scottish Cup final, I mean, the Joe Hart thing, I think, was a big thing for the players. It was a big thing for the sport. But I think they really wanted to win that double for Joe Hart. And I think that also sparked some, new breakthroughs in relationships between the players, the new players feeling more part of it, coming through all that Joe Hart stuff. And I do think that has been a factor. And I just think the players are excited for what's ahead. I think This 8-game Champions League, I think, is a good thing for the players because they get more chances than ever before. They get to play against a more competitive standard of opposition. And you think about it, you play 60 games a season, like 8 games of it is a really good chunk of time. And I know UEFA are probably going to be trying to expand things over the next few years. We need to see how that works out. But I think the players will want to play as many times in Europe as possible. And I think I'm not going to make any predictions on this because I don't know how the European campaign is going to go. But I think the players and the manager feel there's a wee bit of a chance to sneak into that top 24 and get into a playoff next year. So I think they're all excited about that. I think that's a big factor too, like you said.
Yeah, Brendan Rodgers has been public about that, which I think has been interesting as well, that he... One that he, and this might sound obvious, but one that he's very aware of the new format because like Kasper Schmeichel didn't really have a clue. So Brendan Rodgers is aware of what is required, and I think it's good to have a tangible target there. Not just let's be competitive and let's try and get some results, but actually let's try and make that top 24. On the face of it, you look at a recent European record and how many Champions League wins have we had, like one in recent years, and you think, yeah, it's probably a tall order. But I think with the couple of extra games, pot 4 teams. I don't know, I could be wrong, but I just think this new format might just help us out in a weird way. Like, it might just open things up a little bit, and you can maybe treat the games as one-off games a bit more, rather than when they were part of a group and you were looking over your shoulder and all that stuff. So it'll all come down to how we play. But I just can't wait for it. I think the difference between 8 games and 6 is huge. And as we say, Brendan Rodgers wants to make it 10 games as well. And imagine we get 10 top-level Champions League games. It'll be a hell of a season.
I agree with that. And, I'm not saying they're going to take the Champions League by storm, but I think sneaking into that top 24, I think that's a realistic aim.
8 points, something like that.
8 or 9 points. You pick up maybe 4 points from the pot 4 teams. You pick up 3 points from the pot 3 team. You pick up a point from pot 2, pot 1.
Yeah.
Suddenly you can get to the 8 or 9 point mark. Realistically, it's not totally out of order to say that. With more matches, it's possible to get up to 8 or 9 points.
But we need players, because I'm already seeing people bashing away their keyboard saying we can't.
I already
see
people posting effigies of Liam Scales saying this guy's not good enough for Europe. But in all seriousness, we do need players. The club need to deliver, but I'm excited about what happens if they can deliver.
Yeah, John, it's been lovely to be talking about Celtic again with you. Is there anything else you want to get off your chest? I think you're back on Sunday, aren't you?
Back on Sunday. Good to be back. Good to be back on YouTube. Yeah, I'm delighted. I'm buzzing with this. I'm delighted to be on the channel. I'm delighted with seeing what you've done with the channel and you just getting on with things, growing it. What is it, 8,000, 9,000 subscribers coming up for?
Yeah, I think we're getting up to 9 actually.
You've got a wee membership option on the go. You're getting different people on. I mean, this is good. This is what you should be doing, and I'm delighted that you're doing it. Delighted to see people are enjoying it. And I think people should get into it more and back into it in the way that there was a bit of excitement, a bit of buzz about 6-7 Hail Hail at one point. I know you were showing your face a lot in Glasgow around that time, but there's no reason not to get into this channel. I think everyone should be getting into it. And I'll see everyone again on Sunday. I'm looking forward to coming back and chatting with you.
Yeah, get into it now, everyone, especially now the big dog of Celtic podcasting is back. It's been great. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Thanks, John, for your time. And I will return tomorrow to continue the build-up to the Hibs game.